Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to QnA, the show where I take your questions and answer them here in video format. Ton of questions to get into, so let's just jump into it. First one comes from Nice Jetpack, who says, would you agree that most Cleveland sports outlets, especially on YouTube, have been milking Sanders' name for engagement lately? If so, why aren't you participating as well? I've noticed you strayed away from this, and much respect for that. So yeah, I have noticed that people have been like kind of leaning in on the whole Sanders thing. One, I kind of want to just talk about football, and sometimes Sanders pops up, right? Sometimes there are other things to talk about with the team that I feel like are important. And also, like, when it comes to YouTube, something that can happen is, let's say, you know, I do go all in on doing SHEDEUR Sanders stuff, right? What you can run the risk of is making the main people in your audience people who are only there for SHEDEUR stuff when you want to make Browns content overall. And then once the SHEDEUR story is over, if the SHEDEUR story ends, let's say he's not the franchise quarterback, he flames out in Cleveland like 2 years, then you have no audience, right? Because nobody's going to be there for listening to your Brown stuff. And people are only interested in hearing you talk if it has something to do with SHEDEUR Sanders. So this is not my cup of tea, right? I'd rather talk about the team in total, instead of just becoming the one player network. Like, that's just not for me. And I know that can sometimes be a short-term strategy for growth on YouTube, but long-term it can bite you in the ass. So, you know, I just try to cover the team, right? And Sanders does come up, right? I'm not going to say I'm making no videos with Sanders in the thumbnail or Sanders in the headline. No, he's gonna come up a fair bit of time because he plays quarterback, right? The same way that Baker Mayfield, when he was a quarterback here, came up a lot. Deshaun Watson, when he was a quarterback here, came up a lot. If SHEDEUR ends up starting here, we're gonna talk about him a ton, right? Because he's gonna be a main focal point here for the Cleveland Browns. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna talk about him as much as is necessary right now, and I think I've given the conversation about the rookies. It's a fairly big storyline. A lot of talk this off season, but you know, it's not going to be every video I produce is going to be straight up about him. You know, I'm going to always try to have a healthy mix of other things to talk about, but you know, it really just depends on what's going on too, you know. Because if we are in a week where like SHEDEUR is the main story, then a lot of the videos that week are going to be about SHEDEUR. It's going to be focused on whatever the Browns are going through and not necessarily just like about SHEDEUR Sanders. Because again, this is more of a Browns focused channel than anything. Iceman the Boss says, you've mentioned a lot this season will feature Saturday watch sessions as well as Sunday. What should we be looking for as we watch these quarterback prospects, and what are the key lynch marks we should be keeping an eye out on? So you're going to want to just pay attention to the general quarterback landscape of college football. Is this a spectacular year for quarterbacks in college football? Another mediocre year? Who looks like they're having a breakout? Who's in Heisman Trophy contention? You basically want to know, hey, is this a year where there's going to be like 3 quarterbacks that the Browns could take in the first round, and we really should pay attention to all of these guys and what their trajectory looks like and what that means for the Browns and how the Browns might be able to get their hands on one of these guys. The main theme throughout this season is going to be, how are the Browns going to move on from the Watson era? It's clear that they have already announced that this divorce is happening, right? Right now, it's like they're separated, like they're still technically together, but the divorce is imminent. But we don't know what's next for the Cleveland Browns after Deshaun Watson. That's what this season's going to be a lot about, whether it be college football and us finding out what's next because the Browns are going to draft somebody in the first round next year, or if it's somebody on the roster, and that's how the Browns find out what's next for them. There's going to be a lot of searching for what's next at quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, and that's what's going to be the overall narrative of this season in this next offseason. So, yeah, it's going to require watching on Saturdays. It's going to require, just keeping an eye out on who are the top quarterbacks in college football, who's having a good season. All of that stuff is going to matter for the Cleveland Browns because the Browns are undoubtedly in a search for the quarterback. Next question comes from Dominic, who says, if Dylan Gabriel starts before Sanders and Gabriel isn't playing bad enough to get pulled, do you think we will still end up putting Sanders in to see what he has? If Dylan Gabriel is playing good and he's not injured, then no, you're not going to see Sanders if he goes in before him, right? That's kind of just how that would go. Like, if Dylan Gabriel, and let's define what bad enough is to get pulled. Like, if Dylan Gabriel is mediocre, but nothing, he's not terrible, but he's nothing special, then I think you'll see Sanders. But if Dylan Gabriel is playing legitimately good, and the Browns have a good record and are having a good season, then I don't think you're going to see Sanders. I don't think they just throw him in just to throw him in. But, if he's mediocre, right? If he's good but not great, 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, then yeah, I think you probably, see them let Sanders play eventually, just to see what they have in him, at least for this season. Club Sandwich Guy says Jim Donovan's birthday was today, July 17th. Shout out to Jimmy D's family. What is your favorite call or moment he has had in your opinion? One William run is always going to be an iconic line. For the longest time, it was the main iconic line that we had with Jim Donovan, given it he just didn't get that many opportunities because the Browns are really bad. Chubble up a hub, right? That's one of the rewards. If you do drop a $50 super chat on my channel, you hear Chubble up a hub. One of my favorite calls of Jim Donovan. There is the call that he had when the Browns made the playoffs with the fans there, and he brought up the fans. There's a lot of Jim Donovan calls. It's never going to be the same hearing the radio call without Jim Donovan, and it's sad that he's not here with us anymore. So, every Jim Donovan call is my favorite Jim Donovan call. It's too hard to pick just one, if I'm just being honest. Jeffrey Champion says, because of the, I think he meant Judkins situation, would I be interested in Damon Pierce? He is the 3rd or 4th running back on the Texans, so he wouldn't have to give up much to get him, or you wouldn't have to give up much to get Damon Pierce. Sure, right? I just want another veteran running back. If he can be a short yardage back, I'm open to it. I don't know what you would be willing to give up for that. That's why I think the problem is the Browns aren't going to be willing to invest that much in it. They weren't willing to give, Nick Chubb a couple of $1 million to be the 3rd running back on this team. So I don't know how much they really value that position, even after this situation. Quentin Gray says, with Shamar Stewart most likely going back to school over contract language with the Cincinnati Bengals, do you think this will set the precedent for draft picks refusing to go to a team? Well, one, I don't know if it's likely that he just straight up doesn't play for the Bengals. I still think that's unlikely, even though he is posturing towards that. And again, it's important to remember with the Shamar Stewart situation, he can't play college football this year. He would have to sit out a whole year and then be redrafted. And who knows what kind of games the NFL is going to play when you pull a move like that. But yeah, this whole thing with him and the Cincinnati Bengals, I think it's just unique to him and the Cincinnati Bengals, if I'm being honest with you. Doesn't look like a league-wide trend. And I wouldn't imagine this becomes a trend for future draft picks, because why would anybody want that to be the case? This is just the Bengals being stubborn and being met with the same amount of stubbornness, which I think is fair in Shamar Stewart's case. Like, you want to be petty, okay, I'm gonna give you petty back. I don't think he's wrong for that. So yeah, I don't think this would be a trend. I think this is just unique to the Bengals operating how the Bengals operate. Chili Dog says, what do you think is the most underreported story in the AFC North that doesn't involve the Browns? The Trey Henderson holdout feels underreported to me at this point, right? Like, it doesn't seem like anybody's talking about it. Seems like it's going at the same intensity as it always has. It's just that the Shamar Stewart thing's drawing attention away from it. Dog Watch says, Q, since the incident with Judkins, do you believe the Browns are regretting not re-signing Chubb? I don't think this really factors into how they feel about not re-signing Chubb. I think that was a long-term decision. They don't think Chubb's going to be who he used to be in the long term, and they think Judkins and going with him is going to be better in the long term. I don't think they made that decision for the first 6 weeks of the season. They made that decision for the next 4 or 5 years. So I don't think this really factors into whether they regret bringing back Nick Chubb or not bringing back Nick Chubb. I think the Judkins thing is more of a long-term play for them. And I think that's something we got to keep in mind overall. Like, yeah, does it suck that Judkins is going to be suspended more than likely for 6 games? Yes. But the Browns' vision for him is much larger than just 6 games, or 1 season. It's a whole career that they're betting on there, right? So, it's something to keep in mind. But that's it for Q&A. You guys have a great rest of your day. Have an even better night. Peace.